Welcome to the Aquarian Shaman broadcast. I'm Star Wolf, your shamanic host, and I'm here to teach you how to transform yourself and transform the world. Twice a month, we'll be exploring how to develop shamanic psycho-spiritual practices to support transformation while expanding your energy field in a way that can also support others. Each episode offers dynamic experiential guidance and teachings on how to safely enter a natural altered state of consciousness using the sacred breath. Additionally, we will discuss the importance of integration and grounding this medicine into your everyday life. Stay tuned. We're about to create authentic, embodied change that will surely grow corn for the future generations. Welcome, everybody, to the Aquarian Shaman Transformation Network. Here we are again, ready to dive into the mysteries. And I want to share something with you because I've really thought about a lot about how I really want to bring the message that I feel that I carry and that I've been teaching and carrying for 43 years, and how I can best do that with a large audience. And so decided to be a part of this transformation network. And I've reached many people all around the world. If you're not familiar with me, you might go to shamanicbreathwork.org and check out Venus Rising. I'll just tell you up front that we've been around for a long time, teaching and training people to do shamanic breath work. We teach facilitators all around the world, and we're expanding rapidly. We're in Bali and New Zealand and Australia and all over Europe and Mexico and Canada, and of course across the United States. So we're many, many places, and I'm so grateful that my work has touched so many people, and it always touches me to know that. So being with the Transformation Network is another, I guess you could say, shamanic path for me. I've done tons and tons of interviews over the years. I've done lots of individual podcasts and teachings and classes. We do intensive trainings, like I said, all around the world. And we've taught quite a few of our staff members to do it. It's not just me anymore, thank goodness. And we do 2-week intensives, healings, trainings for people to go through their own deep healing, kind of like going in the olden days, like going through a treatment program of some kind. People come through shamanic healing initiatory process for 2 weeks with us. And I do have a background of being an addictions counselor for over 30 years, as well as a mental health teacher and facilitator for many years. But also, in the midst of those many years ago, I woke up to the shamanic path, and I realized that that really was the new mental health system. That really was the new transformation programs. And so that's what I've been doing ever since. And for a while, it was, the mental health center and treatment centers during the daytime, and weekends and evenings were for my other work, my spiritual work, my shamanic work. Until finally, and it really didn't take that long, just a few years. And this is at a time when people knew nothing really much about shamanism or breath work or any of those kinds of things. And we're just waking up to the field of addictions and thinking that they might have some or some mental disturbances, those kinds of things, and family of origin work and shadow work and all that. So I was really there as one of the pioneers. And so eventually the weekend and evenings transformed into my full-time, I would not even call it my occupation, I would say my full-time sacred purpose. And I realized that everything I did before then, in the treatment centers, in the mental health centers, all those kinds of things, in private practice, those were my sacred purpose at one time. I was much younger, in my 20s, and up to my early 30s. But from there until now, which has been 40 years, or longer, I should say, I have had my feet fully planted, even though I walk between the worlds, as all good shamans do. I've had my feet firmly planted in the world of shamanic consciousness and the sacred breath. And I created shamanic breath work many, many years ago. And so therefore we're able to teach and train people to become breathwork facilitators, and also, if they want to go further than just their own healing, to become these facilitators. And we've also birthed something called the satellites, where people, after they've gone through enough training, can go out into the world and have their own satellite that's connected to Venus rising and have permission to teach our trademarked work. So I wanted to tell you that up front, that that's what my life is dedicated to. But the real thing that my life is dedicated to is transformation for everybody, not just for some, but for everyone. And that transformation is the most natural thing in the world. Everything in the world knows how to transform, except humans sometimes. The trees know how to transform. The rivers and streams know how to transform. The oceans, the mountains know how to transform. The whole earth, all creatures, certainly things like dragonflies and bees and moths and butterflies show us incredible transformation. And so the creatures, even every year, that shed their skins, such as the snakes, lizards, different creatures like that, know how to transform. And even the creatures that constantly shed, like human beings, we're shedding our skin, our hair, and so do animals that have fur. So everything knows that it's all about change and transformation. If we want to be healthy, if we want to be strong on every level, we must let go of that which no longer serves us. And human beings are a little bit sticky, a little bit codependent with people, places, and things. I know that I am. And we get real attached to people, places, and things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with attachment. In fact, I think being attached is very healthy. However, when we become overly attached, we call that codependency with people, places, and things. And then we begin to hold on too tightly to that which must be released. And when we don't let go, sometimes we find ourselves getting sick in body, mind, and spirit. And of course, it can affect everyone and everything around us. And it can be contagious in families, in groups, in organizations, and all those kinds of things. So when I was invited to be a part of the Transformation Network and to bring my particular, if you will, shamanic brand of Aquarian shamanism to the world, I was really honored to do that and excited, because I felt this would give me an opportunity to perhaps reach people who are just beginning to understand that they need to transform, and that whether they like it or not, they are transforming. Your blood, your bones, your cells, you're getting older. Your hair is falling out at times, and hopefully it's growing back in. We're constantly shedding our cells off of our skin. We know we have to go to the bathroom, all those kind of things. We're constantly changing, releasing, and letting go. And at the same time, we're constantly receiving and taking things in, whether it's air to breathe, the water to drink, the food that we eat, the thoughts, and media. We have to be careful sometimes with taking in too much negative or just too much positive. We can go into spiritual bypass if we're only staying positive. But also, we want to be able to look at the shadows, ours and the world's, so that we can go through shamanic journeys of death and rebirth. And I call that the teaching of the spiral path, which is the very first initiation we teach everyone that comes in, because you really can't transform unless you know at some level, and unless you're ready, ready or not, here we come, unless you're ready to let go of something about yourself or other people, places, or things. So, warn you up front, if you get involved with transformation, if you get involved especially with Venus Rising Association for Transformation, your life will change, and you may feel like you're upside down for a while. So that's going to bring me in just a moment to speak about something really important to me that has to do with the shamanic mysteries of Egypt, and one of my main spiritual guides, Anubis. And I like to call him the great black wolf of ancient Egypt, who walks by my side as one of my main guides. But before we dive into the mysteries of Egypt deeper, and I give you a little history and her story behind that, and also share more about my relationship to Anubis and how he's constantly with me, I would like to invite you fully into ceremony. And how I do that is by perhaps an introduction such as this for people who may not know about ceremony, who may not know what ritual and ceremony and breath work and all, shamanic and all of that is. It's just words. And if you hear them a few times, you'll understand what they mean. And, it's a mystery until we dive into it and realize that it's history and her story, and that deep down, we all know what transformation is about. We're hardwired for it. So what I like to do to really now begin is to begin our ceremony. For me, the teaching is not just about me speaking to you, but about us diving into the mystery together, so that you don't just come away like, oh, here's another, talk or seminar or that. And we do plenty of that in our work with Venus Rising. But in this format, I really want to give you an experience, if that's what you're looking for, something that you feel and that you can walk away from and say, Star Wolf didn't just talk at me or just teach me. She took me through a journey. So with that, I'm going to turn around. I'm in my medicine room. You can see there's things everywhere. I always promise I'm going to have it straightened up before we get here, but it doesn't work out that way. So hopefully you find it charming and quaint. So this is my part of my one wall of my mystery school and my sacred medicine room. And I have a candle lit over here. You may not be able to see it, but I'm going to light some smudging material here, which happens to be some San Paulo. And I always light this white candle to call in the good spirits, the good energies of transformation. I have a beautiful shell here. The shell actually, when I remarried 5 years ago, was a shell we found actually at a shop on a beach that wanted to come home with us. So I'm bringing this smoke to you using the feathers of a beautiful creature that left our earth through natural conditions, the crow. And one of my students and graduates made this beautiful fan for me. So just want to acknowledge her, Nicole, and send you some of this sweet, sweet sampalo. And as the smoke comes to you, I invite you to put your own hopes, dreams, prayers, and requests from the shamanic world. And the ability perhaps to be in touch with your own inner shaman, that I could refer to as the Aquarian shaman, that we are the ones we've been waiting for. So with the smoke, we release anything that would distract us during this time. Phone calls, phones beeping, kids running around the house, dogs barking, whatever it might be, traffic. And we call in all the directions of the east, the south, the west, the north. We call in the great above and the great below, down deep into the Mama Earth. And we call in to our inner self, to our inner spirit, to our Aquarian hearts that knows that we're all in this together. And we offer thanks and gratitude for all of our many blessings. So one more thing I wanted to say to you is that I'm guessing that almost everyone probably watching, and maybe out of the country you might not know, that for many, many, many years there was a program called Mr. Rogers. A wonderful man would come in and walk in the door and say hello to everybody and take his coat and scarf off and take his shoes off. And then he would walk in and he would say hello to everyone. And then he would very kindly and gently and patiently share some sort of wisdom without sounding preachy or teachy. and just through his loving kindness. He would do something and about something that was happening in the world. He would do it at a level that small children would understand, that teenagers would understand, that young adults, that elders would understand, and it was relevant for everyone. It was kind of storytelling in some way. But frequently it would be about something that was really happening in the world, or it could be a metaphor. But at the end, it was always about your neighbor. And he would sing a little song like, it's great, isn't it great to be your neighbor? I want to be your neighbor. Now that can sound a little hokey or, corny if you don't have the child's heart anymore. But if we come back, as the Christian teachings teach, to have the innocence, to be born again, to be a child at heart, and reactivate that child within us when we truly knew what was right and wrong within ourselves. We knew before everything else was laid upon us. And so his whole message every time, regardless of what was happening, whether it was about the policeman, whether it was about a neighbor who was sick, whether it was about somebody who maybe had some, challenges or some impairments, mentally or emotionally, all kinds of things, or about creatures, he would teach loving kindness in his own very simple way that the smallest of children, the oldest of elders, and everybody in between could receive that message. So when I was thinking about if I could emulate someone here each time that we come together, who would it be? And I was thinking about Ram Dass, I was thinking about Gandhi, I was thinking about Grandmother Twyla, my Wolf Clan grandmother, all these people on the other side. My own father who's on the other side, and my own grandmothers who are on the other side. I was thinking about all these beings who I definitely want to carry some of their characteristics and qualities and values, and I believe that I work at that, and I do. But I thought, who's a universal figure you could look up, and if you don't know who he is, Mr. Rogers, that would give you a sense more of who I honor, acknowledge, and who I hope that I could become more like. And I hope that that transmits to you through the teachings that I bring, no matter how far out they can get or esoteric they can become, that eventually it brings us all back home to our hearts and to our everyday lives, to the people we love, and even to the people that we don't. So consider me your shamanic Aquarian shaman, Mrs. Rogers, if you will, who's going to be real, authentic, and down home with you. And I'm happy to hear from you afterwards as well. You can always email me, and it's starwolf@shamanicbreathwork.org. So one of the special things that I want to share with you today is about an incredible journey that I made many years ago. In fact, it was 20 years ago, I guess. Yeah, it was in 2005 that I took a trip. Now, in the 60s and 70s, I took different kind of trips. I don't do those anymore. Did enough of those. But the trip that I took at this time in 2005 was my first trip to Egypt. And I went with the amazing goddess, if you will, Nikki Scully, truly the great dame, great madam of Egypt. And even though Nikki's not from there, she's from the United States, such as myself, she has an amazing story. And since she's not here and not able right now to tell her story, I'll tell a little bit of her story. And that is that many years ago, she went to Egypt with the Grateful Dead, and they played, I believe, 2 or 3 concerts right in front of the Sphinx. This is when they not used to have soldiers and fences and those kinds of things. And people, hippies, if you will, came from all over the world to hear the Grateful Dead play. And Nikki's was very close. In fact, her, I believe it was her ex-husband, was their road manager for many years. But anyway, the point of this is that it was a wild time, as you might imagine. The Grateful Dead in Egypt with Nikki Scully. And Nikki has always been a way shower. She's always been a shaman at heart. And so she was able to bring groups together. She had that kind of charisma. And over the years, she took so many people to Egypt until finally she retired just a few years ago. And I believe she took over 50 trips to Egypt. So that's a lot of times, a lot of wear and tear for a long distance and taking people. And during that time, she also had met Mohammed Nazmi with Quest Travel. She met him before he was with Quest Travel and created it. And they became like brothers and sisters. We're very close. And also Emil Shaker, who was Muhammad's best buddy. And they came together and really launched these shamanic Egyptian mystery tours to Egypt, which changed thousands and thousands of people who went through these trips and journeys and who went back and talked to their families and friends. And so they really became emissaries for that part of the world and from around the world. And she had very large groups of people going, it's a little difficult sometimes to navigate Egypt. And so, 20, 30, 40 people, that sort of thing. But I want to tell you how we met. We met online somehow when I was living in Fairfax and she was living up in Eugene, where she still lives with her beloved husband and family members. And one thing led to another. We realized that we were like with sisters from different mothers. And even though, she has darker skin, darker hair, and I have blue eyes and blonde hair, that didn't matter. We called ourselves twins at the time. And so I went up to see her in Eugene, and there was a lot of magical things that happened, and with some experiences there around the god Ptah and Thoth, and the group that was there. And we became very close at that time, and it really opened up my oracular gifts that I had had my whole life. And at times I would touch, but it would frighten me. I really didn't have someone to hold the space for me, who knew how to hold the space for me to fully drop into this oracular space of letting something energetically come in and become my mouth, my eyes, and my words, and speak from my heart about mysteries that I, the personality of Linda Wolf, did not have that wisdom, if you will, didn't have that knowledge. It wasn't something I had studied. And so the more that Nikki experienced that, she was impressed. And it was impressive that she was impressed because she had been involved with so many people who could do those kinds of things, but also who had been to Egypt many times. So for me to have this wisdom coming through that I had not studied, and of course, we didn't have the internet the way we do now, or AI or anything to ask these questions. She was kind of blown away. And she just said, you have to go to Egypt at some point. So it took a little while. I had some life changes happening. I was moving from California and from the Fairfax area in California to the North Carolina, where I live now for the last 20 some years, where I have established a retreat center and training center here. But when I came here, I called her spontaneously one day. I said, I'm ready to go to Egypt. And that's where it really began. So I'm going to skip over a whole lot of other things and say, I was anxious about going. Now, I've been a lot of places around the world, but for some reason I was feeling very anxious, even though I totally trusted Nikki. I knew she knew the lay of the land and all these kind of things. And I think that what was happening is I had a foreboding of what was going to happen, that my life was going to radically change. And of course, that's what transformation is about, and what I'm about, and what I talk about and teach about and love. And yet they say if you don't have a little trepidation, if you don't have a little anxiety, it's probably not a very big transformation. So I was really kind of shook up. But once we got on the plane and we were flying and Nikki and I were sitting next to one another, I really felt like this is going to be good. It's all going to be good. And she was so excited to have me. And Brad, my late husband, was with us as well. So I hadn't read, I hadn't studied anything. I just wanted to go and be kind of a blank slate and just to, I'd had that one experience with Nikki and her mystery school, but other than that, I really had not studied or read things at that time. Once we started to land, I started feeling kind of sick, like I was fuzzy headed. Something wasn't quite right. And I said that to Nikki, and she said, well, it's a long trip and, you'll rest and this and that. This is a long story. So I really am going to move forward to say that that's not what happened. What happened is I became very ungrounded. It felt quite frankly as if I was on plant medicine or I was on a really big shamanic breathwork journey. I was completely altered, and it was difficult for me to feel my hands, my feet. It was hard for me to even, believe it or not, to speak. And I didn't really know what was happening. And Nikki, in her brilliance, a day or so after we were there and the group was getting ready to arrive, she said, I want you to lie down and I want you to tell me what Thoth has to say about this. Now, Thoth is her main guide and has been her main guide for many, many years. And he's a wisdom keeper. Some say he came from another planet. And he has like the head of a crane. And some say that he's the one who brought language and all the skills of how to be human beings, teaching them how to survive, how to grind the corn and to mill, all those kinds of things. And so he was said to teach Isis how reading and writing and all those things. These are the myths and stories, whether you take them literally or metaphorically or allegorical, however you want to see that. I kind of see it all as true at some level. And so she said, what does Thoth have to say? And apparently he had a lot to say, because a couple of hours later, she kind of shook me and I came out of it. I had no memory of anything that I had said. And the rest of the trip, when people arrived, we had to communicate to this large group of people, mostly people, it was a handful of people I knew, but mostly people I didn't know, that Starwolf was in a spiritual emergency, so to speak. But let's translate it to a huge psychic, shamanic awakening, so that I was seeing just naturally into all the different dimensions and worlds. And I was seeing the archetypal energies in their almost human-like embodiment forms, as much as I was looking at you or anyone else. And that I could see them standing amongst us, and I could hear what they were thinking and what they were saying. So speeding that up now over a week period with, I think with staff and everybody, 55 people, and that's not all the other staff on the ground. We traipsed across Egypt to all the magical, powerful sites. Sometimes we were there at 4 a.m. when no one else was there, or at midnight. We were able to do ceremonies, various things. We were even able to bring in shamanic breath work to some of the sites and do shamanic breath work with everyone. It was the most singular, transformational 2 weeks of my life. And that's saying a lot if you knew me and where I've been and what I've experienced. Because I was doing something that I had no idea what I was doing at an ego level, and Nikki and the Egyptologist and all the other people at Quest Travel were all able to validate the things that were coming through. So it was a miracle, really. For me, it was a miracle. It impacted everybody on that trip. Once we told them what was going on, they were blown away as well. And all the ceremonies and all the rituals we did had some sort of spectacular influence on everyone that was there. And people still to this day, after all these years, more than 2 decades, contact me and talk about this journey. Also, at the end, when we came out of the whole thing, whatever had its, I guess you could say, its cloak around me and was downloading to me, like the night before we left, magically lifted. And I found, because I thought, when I go home, I'm going to have to get some medication. I can't live life like this. I can't even feel my feet, my hands. but it just magically evaporated and I was back to myself. And it was like, oh my gosh. So there's so much more to talk about this that I don't have time to today. Maybe we'll at another day. But out of this journey, when we returned home, we stayed in touch and we created two books. One is The Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt. And I can show you on the back of the book here, maybe you can see this. Well, I'll show you, this is the front of the book, The Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt. But this is the back where, the little picture, if you can see it. I don't know if you can see it very well. I was trying to find a better picture, but that's Nikki and I that same year. And we came back and we wrote this book, The Shamanic Mysteries of Egypt. And the story behind it is that every day we talked on the phone, she recorded me, and I was able to go back into that state. I didn't think I could, and she said, yes, you can. And I went back into that irregular state for several months, and she would ask questions, and then I would answer, have no memory of the answers, and she would record it all. And from that came all these incredible images as I described each of the deities and to the colors that they wore, to the expressions on their faces, to what kind of creatures they were, what their names were, all these things, not anything I've ever studied. That was all happening during these months that we were channeling and working together. And she saw herself as Thoth, the one who was writing the mysteries. And she saw me as Anubis, the shaman, the opener of the way. And so the second book we created was this one. Maybe you've seen it. It's called The Anubis Oracle, a divination tool to connect with guides from the Egyptian pantheon. And I use lots and lots of divination books, but this one is the one I use every single day of my life. And I was trying to see what year the kids came out. I'm not sure here. I can't see it. But anyway, and then with my friend Ruby Falconer, who's an astrologer, we went on to create the Shamanic Mysteries, astrological mysteries. So 3 books, one of them being a book on astrology, one being on the mysteries, and the other being oracle, all came from that original journey where I innocently, like the fool, if you know the tarot deck, said, oh, I'd like to go to Egypt. So careful what you say, careful what you ask for. And I'm just saying that, tongue in cheek. Be careful, but don't be too careful, because you may have a whole new life awaiting you. From that time till now, I've now authored or co-authored 13 books and working on a couple of more. But I doubt, I don't want to invite in anything unnecessarily, but I doubt that I will ever be as puzzled, confused, enlightened, amazed, shook up, and transformed as much as I did during that time. And I'm so grateful. Because life is about change. Life is about transformation. And I pulled a card for you all today. I just said, for our audience today, what is it, the main message here? Should I show them the card of Anubis? And it's like, no, trust your own deck, right? Trust your own Anubis Oracle deck and see. And of course, what came up, because it's been coming up since the first of the year for both me and my husband, Kepra. And Kepra is the little dung beetle, if you can see him there. Okay. And in Egypt, Kepra represents the cycles of change. Kepra, it's hermaphroditic, but I'd say the he, she, the they, the original they, is a spiral dancer and is constantly guarding the planet with its transformation. And it follows the stars. The little dung beetle, that's a truth. And I'll say more about that another time because there's a whole teaching around it. But scientists have proven that the dung beetle navigates by the stars. This little dung beetle that's rolling around poop, if you will, navigates by the stars. And if it can do that, perhaps we human beings can do that as well. But the Kepra energy is probably one of the most symbolic symbols I know of for the cycles of change. Some say that in ancient Egypt, before the gods and goddesses were more humanoid-looking beings, that they were creatures like this dung beetle, like Thoth, like Anubis. And they had different forms that evolved into human beings. So there's so many directions I could go right now, but I think what I most want to share with you is about following your path, finding your path, entering into the great mystery, being willing to dance with the cycles of change, and not needing to have the answers ahead of time. You know, I remember my Wolf Clan grandmother, the Seneca Nation, Grandmother Twyla, said to me when I was saying, Grandmother Twyla, please explain to me what the great mystery is. And she would smile and she'd shake her head and she'd say, Star Wolf. And she gave me that name, by the way. She said, Star Wolf, if I could tell you, or if I did tell you what the great mystery was, it would no longer be the great mystery. And we must always believe in something greater and bigger and more powerful than ourselves, than our human selves. And to know that we are created in its image, that we too have access to unlimited knowledge and wisdom and experiences and compassion and love and forgiveness. We ourselves are children of the gods. We say it all the time. We are God's children, or the goddess's children, or great mysteries' children. We are the children of the gods. And if that's the truth, which for me, that's, my cosmology, that I am the child of this universe or multiverse, and that whatever created all of it, that I am its child. And yet at the same time, there's this sense of like, well, children grow up, don't they? Sometimes it feels like they don't, but children grow up. What about we humans? Can we too grow up to begin to emulate the energies of our true parents? One of the things I teach in our Shamanic Healing Initiatory Process program, one of the initiations is called Family of Origin. I do a whole lot of talking about family and family roles and different things that people go through in childhood and, at birth and at adolescence and as young adults, and how their parents have influenced them and all those kinds of things, positively and negatively. And how, not only our parents, but our school teachers, our neighbors, our relatives, culture itself, where we are, all those kind of things. It's all your family of origin stuff. And how some of that has been damaging and hurtful and painful and repressed or caused difficulties and addictions and various things in our lives. And some of those things, of course, coming from families of origin, hopefully have been loving and supportive and teaching good things of how to be a good human being, a real human being. And I would think that most of us get a mixture of the, if you will, the dysfunctional family things and the functional things. And there had to be something that was functional or you would not have survived, because you did get fed somehow. And you did obviously survive the cold and, elements and all those kinds of things. So whether it was your immediate biological family, adopted family, or something else, your family of origin is everything, the schools, the religions, everything that you were involved in. And in that initiation, we call that family of origin. Foo on you. And from that, shadow energy gets connected. So that's another one of the initiations that we teach. But what I want to focus on right now is the family of origin. And I'm very grateful for the light and the shadow of my family of origin and all the gifts that it gave me, both of the light and the dark, the things that I've needed to work through and the things that have supported me on my journey and the things that have been my lessons. But eventually, at some point, if we do enough of our quote family of origin work, and quite frankly, that can be ongoing. I'm going through something now with my 93-year-old mom who's just now become disabled enough that she cannot live alone, and where I'm seeing to her care at this point. That family of origin doesn't end even when you grow up, or even when you're older, or when your parents are older, or even when they are no longer here on the planet. They will always be your family of origin, for better or worse, and deep imprints within your soul. But one of the things that really helps us move more into sovereignty and to being not only children of God, if you will, but to become adult children of the gods, not just of our families, but of, if you don't like the word God or goddess, the children of great spirit or great mystery. That we have these dual parents, if you will. We have our human parents, schools and families and those sort of things. And then we have our spiritual family, which maybe includes some of the human people, and it may not. And for whatever reason, the Egyptian pantheon adopted me. Or maybe I came from them originally. I can remember when I was a little girl, I was actually a teenager, so I can imagine what my mom was thinking at that time. And remember, this was the 70s. So if you could imagine who I was in the 70s, a lot was going on during that time, similar to now. So I was in the car with my mother, and she was actually taking me down to a little town that we lived in to let me out to meet some of my friends to go to the movies in the little indoor movie place. And I have no idea what I said, but she just stopped for a moment at the stoplight. She looked at me and she gave me this look, and she said to me, "I just need to say to you that I don't believe you're my child. I believe that the aliens came and left you and took my child." She was so angry with me. I don't remember what I said. For just a moment, my feelings got hurt and I had a tear in my eye. And then all of a sudden, I got this big smile on my face, and I thought, this would explain a lot. I love my parents dearly, very dearly, and so grateful for them. And we were very different creatures from parents that were born, in the early part of the century, to me, when I was born in 1952. And it was a whole different world. And, hippies and rock and roll was intense. I understand for my parents, it was very intense for me as well. But it made sense to me at that moment that, maybe I did come from someplace else, which I now think we all do. We have our earth parents, but we all have come from someplace else at some level. And I believe that I've remembered that for a long time, that I wasn't from here, that I love it here. I love this beautiful earth, but that I live in many different dimensions. And now we know so much more about multidimensional work. People talk about it all the time. But we have to find the doorway through. So the last little piece of teaching that I want to share with you in the last 15 minutes or so that we have, and at another time I'll go into a deeper teaching around it, is around Anubis. For me, Anubis is the black wolf of Egypt, or the dark wolf of Egypt. And this is another image of Anubis, one of my favorites. Beautiful image. One of the first images, one of the first statues that I bought on that first trip when I was there, not really knowing who or what he was. And with this obsidian energy, we're able to cut away, opening the door to the other side, cutting away that which no longer serves us, and welcoming in our new identities, our more of who it is we really are, by removing the outer layers, to doing a type of psychic surgery and soul retrievals, which we do with our work, teaching how to retrieve parts of yourself and how to release parts that you've taken on that you really don't need and these attachments, and how to become more of who it is that you really are. So Anubis opens the door. Anubis is the ancient wolf of Egypt. He is the black wolf, the gray wolf, the white wolf. But in his black form, he walks us to the door of death. And that can be physical death. It can be anything in your life that you're ready to release, to transform. So the wolf is my main guide on my Aquarian shaman path, all the way from the white wolf with grandmother Twyla with the wolf clan in the Seneca tradition, to the Egyptian mysteries with Anubis as the dark wolf or the black shadow wolf. So those two walk beside me and within me. If you're truly working with shamanic energy, you're not only working with light, and you're not only working with dark, you're working with the light and the dark, because both are beautiful. Go out under any night sky and look up into the beautiful black sky. Or get up at sunrise and look at the beautiful blue sky as the sun is rising and the light that comes in. The light and the dark balance one another within us and without. We would perish if we had too much dark or too much light. And our whole world right now is in turmoil. The whole world. And for me, I feel especially the United States or the ununited states. But I know it's not just here, it's all around the world. We are, I've been told, at the end of an era, of an eon, that astrologically and that from many different spiritual traditions, we are at the end of an era, of an aeon, of an age. And with the new age, this is not just new age with crystals and love and light, which is all beautiful, but at a new era and a new age, we feel the door is opening. And will we walk through it? Will we walk through that door? Will we make the changes that intuitively, instinctually, physically, mentally, emotionally, in every level, we know that it's time for a change? It has been for a while, but maybe now there's enough pressure building up all around the world to help us move through the dark night of the soul, of the shamanic soul, and to birth the Aquarian shaman energy. And what that means to me is each one of us become Anubis. Each one of us have the heightened senses. We can hear and we can see and we can smell and we can find the path, our own unique path to walk. Each one of us can then lead and help others and be a guide and show others how to cut away that which is holding them back, and to do so with love and respect. That just like moving the blockade across a river where it's dammed up, as soon as you remove the obstacles, the water dances and flows free and jubilant. And so does our spirits. So I'm very hopeful and optimistic, even though I'm aware of my pessimism as well about some of the things happening in the world. I'm not a spiritual bypasser by any means. Anybody that knows me knows that's not true, that I am one who faces the dark as well as the light. And I've assisted many, many people, especially in groups, in our groups. The shadow work we do is profound. And it is essential to do family of origin work and the shadow work in order to find what you truly love and what loves you, what's your beloved, and to step into your sacred soul purpose. This is the time that we've been waiting for. And I know that all of you out there have been transforming your whole lives. But this is time for a great big Aquarian shaman cosmic jump into the void, and to not let anyone or anything hold you back from being who it is you truly are. I know that it's hard sometimes to do what hasn't been done before, or to share certain things that you're afraid you'll be criticized for. I have lots of stories about that in my past, and even not so far past. But there's nothing that can bring you closer to your higher power, to your soul's urge to be who it really is, than to follow your path of transformation. And so I just want to begin to wrap this up at this moment, and to just come back to the highlights that I want to share. And that is, we are all in transformation, whether we want to be or not. We cannot avoid it. The trees can't, the bees can't, the birds can't, human beings can't. Everything is in transformation. We can either do the kicking, screaming, clawing, I won't go, hell no, I won't go, or we can surrender. And that's another energy that Anubis brings to us, is how to surrender. And here he is in the Anubis Oracle deck cards. If you can see him there, he's called Opener of the Way. If we call on Anubis, or whatever guide you have that has this kind of almost Christ-like energy, this beautiful heart, and he's been through a lot like us, right? That's what makes him so lovable, and we can trust him, is that he knows how to come from his heart, but to do so in a strong and powerful, grounded way, and to open the door. And that's what he's called, Opener of the Way. So whatever you pray to, or whatever you call upon within yourself or without, or both, I call on anything and everything that really wants to help me through my changes. But I especially have, like I said, my closest guides, which for me is Anubis. And he also is very similar to me of my childhood relationship to the energy of Jesus Christ, as I understood that energy. The one who did not judge, the one who believed in peace and love, Jesus the hippie, if you will, but who was also courageous, and who walked through his own fears, who transformed himself, and who rose up, if you will, into the light of his true purpose and being on this planet, and has continued to inspire loving kindness and forgiveness and miracles for thousands of years now. May we all find what guides us through the darkness, especially during these times right now. May we trust that the light and the dark always travel together, that they're not separate, just as we have night time and daytime, and that sometimes it's darker for a longer period of time, as we're coming into the spring equinox here now. And sometimes it's darker, like it does here in the United States in the fall time. We start going darker. So there's times when things are lighter and darker, and there's times when it's perfectly even during solstices and equinoxes and different things like that. And human beings reflect that in their own lives, that there's times when we shine bright. There's times when we're more internal and we can't be as out there as maybe we would like to, but we need to go more inward. And that we learn from the seasons, we learn from nature, we learn from creatures, we learn from the myths, we learn from the mysteries. So I'm one who's still continuing, at 72 years young, I am still learning how to transform my life and support others in their major transformations. People say to me sometimes, when are you going to retire, Star Wolf? You've been working with people since you were 20 years old in the mental health center. It's when I started working with chronic mentally ill clients. And I've thought about it, and I thought, well, when will I retire? And then it came to me, how to retire from your sacred purpose. So much like my elders and teachers who've taught me, I don't see myself retiring until I'm ready to leave, in whatever way that looks. So, and even then, I hope I'll be on the other side and still in your dreams, and still speaking to you through my books, my classes, things like this that we're recording and archiving, and that a part of me will be here to support you and guide you on your trips. Okay, that was a lot. I hope that it meant something to you. I feel like Mr. Rogers now, getting ready to put on my shoes and my jacket and to walk back out into the world. And I look forward to being with you again. And this will be posted after we're finished here. It'll go out on social media. Please feel free to share with your friends. And I hope that you'll feel that you're my friend. Won't you be my neighbor, my shamanic neighbor, and that we will see each other here again or somewhere else along the way. And again, you can reach me at shamanicbreathwork.org. And this particular recording will be made available to people after this is over. And thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here, especially at this time. And thank you for being willing to transform, to do the inner work, and to bring your special gifts and your light and beauty to the world. Namaste. Until next time, blessings to one and all. This is Star Wolf, and you've been listening to the Experiential Aquarian Shaman broadcast. Transform yourself, transform the world. Join me every second and fourth Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio to awaken your inner Aquarian shaman. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to my channel and connect with me on social media at Linda Star Wolf. For more information about my offerings and trainings, visit shamanicbreathwork.org. Thank you for taking this special time to journey with me.